There we go. That hits the spot. That hits. Welcome to the Accelerativ Thrust podcast. How's everyone doing out there? Oh, wait, you can't answer that.
We're fucking great.
Exactly. Haha. You see, I got the mic and you don't. How are you doing today, Erik?
I'm doing well. Yeah, doing okay. I don't know. Not a lot happening, you know. It's same as it's ever been, or however that.
Oh, come on! You got to throw in the Talking Heads reference. Same as it ever was.
Right. Yeah, it's snowy. It's cold.
It's
we
winter
can't leave
in
our
Iowa.
Houses. The air is diseased. Well, you know, the standard.
Yeah, there's nothing like weird, like at all. It's just
Yeah, the government's being actively overthrown. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
just
I
the
mean,
regular spit.
when has that never happened? When has that never happened
Right,
in our
it's like
lifetime?
all the time.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know how I mentioned, I think last episode, how excuse me, how I'm coughing. But how I've been
So
getting.
you breathe that air. That's what you did.
The
That's where you
disease
screwed
there.
up. You breathe that air.
That's true. That's true. I stepped outside. That's where I went wrong.
Yep. Can't do it.
You know how I talked about how I was getting into comics again? I think
Yeah.
either it was the last episode or it was one of those conversations, one of those updated conversations that maybe you listeners will be lucky enough to hear if we decide to do bonus episodes, because that's exactly the kind of bonus episodes we're going to do. You know it.
Yep.
Go
ahead and smash that subscribe button and you get extra content.
Then you can really start to dislike our podcast. But what I was going to say, so I've been getting into comics. I've been reading this really fantastic graphic novel that I checked out from the library from the 80s called Moonshadow. You ever heard of this?
No, I haven't.
Dude, the art is absolutely breathtaking, and it's a style that I feel really wasn't done much in the 80s, because it's a reprint of a 12-issue series. And what it is, like, I'm horrible at explaining plot points, but just a real brief summary. Basically, it's about the main character's name is Moonshadow, who is a kid whose mother mated with an alien, a member of an alien race, and they're known as I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's the Giadoses. It's a really weird, but anyway, you know the Izzes from the Max?
No.
Did you?
Sorry.
Oh,
I don't know much about things.
Okay, well I didn't. Did you ever read the Max from Image Comics?
No. Did they make a cartoon about it on MTV?
Yeah.
I did see some of that. Yeah.
Okay.
But I never read it.
There were these little like white creatures called Izzes, spelled ISZ, and basically what the Giadoses are these like balls of light that fly around, and they serve no purpose. And when they do actually like appear on Earth, they have smiley faces.
Wow.
But they have absolutely no purpose, basically. And it's
just like smiley faces.
Yeah, just like smiley faces. They're like literally flying smiley faces. And that's all I'm going to give away, because, I don't know if anybody, you can go to the library in Muscatine and check it out if you want. I'm sure that maybe somebody has heard of this. It's something I came across by chance, because I was specifically looking for science fiction comic books. And this showed up in the recommendations of the search engine of the library.
Cool.
So anyway,
So
yeah.
do you listen to the song Moonshadow by Cat Stevens on repeat while you read it?
Maybe I will now. I didn't even know there was a. I wonder if there's any connection to that.
Oh.
Well,
Yeah, I don't know.
reason why I say that, because I'm sure the Cat Stevens song probably came out in what, the 60s, 70s?
It was on, what is that record? The Tiller Man? T for the Tiller Man?
Okay.
No, I can't remember. Yeah, that might be it. Sorry.
Well, no.
I don't know everything about Cat Stevens.
Well, you're in luck.
Unfortunately.
You're in luck because I know everything about Cat Stevens.
Oh, good. Teaser. It's on Teaser and the Fire Cat.
Okay,
Dang.
all right. That's
Of
an
course.
interesting title.
It's a good record. It really is.
See, I've never really heard. I mean, I've heard of Cat Stevens. I think my dad has a couple of his records.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the reason why I say that is because you know how, like, especially in the 80s and 90s, it seemed like a lot of the more obscure comic book artists and creators, they loved music, it seemed like. And so they would always reference, like, I remember the Sandman comics from Neil Gaiman would always have, like, you know, while somebody's getting murdered in a bathtub, the song Mr. Sandman would be, they would caption it as like, okay, that's playing in the background, you know.
Right.
So you had to, like, picture, like, somebody getting murdered in a bathtub listening to, like, an oldie song or something.
I mean, I usually am doing that, but yeah, I like that it leads you there.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe the whole purpose of this book is to make people discover Cat Stevens' Moonshadow and that album. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
But it's a really interesting, the way that I just described it, like I told you, I'm very horrible at describing things. Like, I'd be the worst, like, movie reviewer or just book reviewer, because that what I just told you that would be my reviews that would get published, and I would probably lose my job after the first review, because that's literally as far as I'm going to go, because I'm always afraid that, like, number one, I'll screw something up, and number two, I'll spoil it, because I've actually gotten in trouble for spoiling stuff before. Like, on accident. Because I don't think about, like, oh, not everybody else in the universe, you know, has seen this. Or, like, I remember there was a period of time I was watching The Walking Dead. And did you ever watch that?
I watched the first couple seasons, yeah.
Okay. Well, there was, like, this is going to be a spoiler, but it's years ago, so I don't think it really matters. Unless you want me to not spoil it and you think you're going to watch anything bad. Okay.
Honestly, any show that gets past, like, 7 seasons, there's no way in shit I'm ever going to watch it.
Same here. It's that exactly 1 or 2 seasons tops. That's what you're going to get out of me. But anyway, so Herschel died, I think, at the end of, like, do you remember Herschel, the character? Or, I don't know how far you got into the series, but
who was it?
Herschel was
he an old guy?
Yeah, he was an old guy who they ended up on his farm.
On his farm, yeah. I remember.
Yep. Okay, so Herschel died. Did you get that far in the series? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay, so Herschel died.
I think that's when I was kind of not paying attention anymore and ultimately stopped.
Well, because this would have been about season 3, probably. Might have been the end of season 2. I don't remember. But anyway, I decided it was a great idea to get on Facebook and say R.I.P. Herschel.
How did that go?
Well, I had literally one friend tell me that he just wanted to knock my teeth out. I mean, you know, he was, of course, kidding. But or maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But
do you still have teeth?
All except one.
Oh, well, then I guess he was kidding.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I didn't think about the fact that, like, okay, yeah, there are other people besides me that
Right.
are watching the show, and some of them didn't get to see the episode last night.
Yeah.
And that's why I would be like, nobody should hire me as a movie or book reviewer, because I would just spoil it for everyone. Especially if I hated the movie. If I hated the movie,
Right.
I would just be like, look, I'm gonna save you some agony here. But music reviews obviously are a whole different thing.
Yeah. You're supposed to spoil it.
Yeah, you're supposed to spoil music
That's like
reviews.
the point.
I've never heard of anybody getting mad about, oh my God, you said that sounded like The Cure. I want to knock your teeth.
And then I listened to it, and then it did.
And then it did, and I'm pissed. Yeah. You could have totally just hid that. You didn't have to say it.
You could have let it be a surprise for me.
Exactly.
Even though I only listened to it because you said it sounded like The Cure.
If somebody says that something sounds like The Cure, I'm probably not gonna. That would be like a deterrent for me. Not
really.
Not,
oh my God.
Not because I hate The Cure. Not because I dislike The Cure. I don't dislike The Cure. Okay, but I am gonna say this.
Okay.
And you might heavily disagree with me here. I'm not a huge fan of The Cure. Like, I like a couple, 3 albums. Mm-hmm. And I will admit, it's because I haven't really heard much past those couple, 3 albums. Those 3 albums are Disintegration,
mm-hmm.
Wish,
mm-hmm.
and the other one is what's the one that has Boys Don't Cry?
I think that's just Boys Don't Cry.
So that's just a single. Okay.
I think that's, or no, 3 Imaginary Boys.
3 Imaginary Boys. That's it.
Right.
That's the one. Those are the 3 that I'm familiar with. I know 3 Imaginary Boys is kind of like when they were still sort of a tinny, almost post-punk type thing.
Post-punk, for sure. Yep.
Right. I would say that probably just based on what I've heard, that would be the era that I would probably prefer.
Well, they didn't stay there very long, actually, at all.
No, it was only for like a couple records, or even
just that one, I think.
Yeah.
Because then we get into like the real gothy Cure.
Sure.
Like 17 Seconds is sort of in between 3 Imaginary Boys and the super goth stuff, but like Faith and Pornography are just slogs. They're just like the most depressing, beautiful goth music of all time. It's great, but it's challenging. But then it's funny that you like Disintegration, because the 2, maybe 3 records before that lead directly to that, and they're awesome. Disintegration's a little darker, but like The Head on the Door and Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, you should definitely check those out. I think you'd really like them.
Okay, I will. Yeah. I will for sure.
I am a pretty big Cure fan. Like, I really like.
I actually knew that about you, because we or one of our acquaintances had a conversation about you liking The Cure.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just because I'm a 44-year-old goth.
Well, do you like Bauhaus?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Another one of my favorite bands of all time.
Okay. Yeah. Then yeah, you're definitely a 45-year-old goth then, for sure. I like Bauhaus. Yeah. I really like Bauhaus. I mean, they're fantastic. I'm gonna have to listen to more Cure, I think. I like what I've heard, like I said. But if somebody says, "Hey, this band sounds a lot like The Cure," it's not gonna make me jump to them. You know what I mean? Unless they say, "Okay, well, this is like The Cure mixed with Jesus Lizard," in which case I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I would be intrigued by that as well. The thing about The Cure is, like, there are, depending on who you talk to, there's at least 3 or 4 eras to the band. So it's like some people really like, like I said, that dark, super gothic Cure. Some people like the poppy Cure. Some people like that Disintegration and Beyond sort of time period too, where it's like still poppy but also still dark. But yeah, there's a lot of things to sift through and find the Cure that you like,
Sure, yeah. It's kind of like you can say that a little bit. I feel, and this is going to be a weird comparison, but I'm only saying it just because the way you're kind of talking about the eras of the Cure reminds me of eras of Sonic Youth.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because my two favorite albums from Sonic Youth are their first album, Confusion is Sex, mm-hmm. which is like nobody's favorite album from them. Because I mean, that's like literally like when they were just pretty much noise completely with like some melody, but not really. And then there's also like a really, really badly recorded yet glorious cover of I Want to Be Your Dog.
Nice.
So that is my first favorite. My second favorite is Dirty, which is like, that's two totally like different.
Right.
Because Dirty was like their Butch Vig record.
Mm-hmm.
So that was almost like the closest that maybe Sonic Youth got to being like super popular.
Mm-hmm.
Like the video to 100% and things like that. Maybe Goo also with Cool
mm-hmm.
Thing,
Right.
But
yep.
Who knows? Music is an interesting thing, and people definitely view everything in different ways for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what makes it fun. Right?
Exactly. So yeah, today we're not. I messed up, Eric. I totally forgot about thinking about a local band's thing to review. So we're just gonna talk about stuff like we're kind of doing now, and also we do still have 3 releases to talk about that we were into last week.
A piece. Yeah.
A piece.
So like 6.
Yeah, so 6 total. So we're still gonna be rocking the.
So strap in.
Strap in, ladies.
It's gonna be a long one.
And if you have to leave early, don't.
Anyway.
Because you might miss something.
What did you say?
I said if you have to leave early, don't.
Yeah.
Because you might miss something.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you can't. It's not like you can't go back and replay it or anything later.
No, this is one-shot podcast.
We actually are hackers now, and so we like know how to like hack into everything and make everybody like only be able to listen to it once, and then it disappears. It's like the notes on Inspector Gadget.
I love your hacking terminology.
Yeah.
So we're big hackers now, which means we totally hack into stuff.
Yeah, like that's totally what we do. Yeah. I don't know if you guys know.
Let's try to dumb it down.
It's like the hacker language. No, that's really how hackers talk, though. Remember, Eric? We're supposed to like not tell them.
Right.
Because
everything I'm saying is made up of numbers, so you can't hear it. But it's all 3s and L's and shit. Backwards 4s. I don't know.
Yeah, something along those lines.
I mean, what are you gonna do?
Exactly. So yes. So basically, like after this message, which is this episode, it will self-destruct. So you get one chance to listen, ladies and gentlemen.
It's embedded with technology.
Like, cool technology.
Yeah, cool.
It's like
technology.
Really cool stuff. Or wait, hold on. Should I be edgy and say real cool shit?
Yeah.
Okay. Parental.
And the O's in cool are zeros. So deal with that.
C00L.
It's a bracket. Yeah.
There we go. So we're stylizing everything now that we talk.
And the L's just like an L, because who the L cares? That's what I say.
We're using stylized speak terms now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we probably should get going.
I think you're first today.
Am I first today? Okay.
I think so.
I don't even remember anymore who went when, but I'll go first today. Why the heck not? All right, so the first release I am going to talk about is this record from this hardcore punk group called DFL, who are also known as Dead Fucking Last. A little bit of history with this band. They started out on the Beastie Boys label, Grand Royal. They put out their first record. It was called My Crazy Life. And they had a song called The Mosher on it. Legend has it, I don't know if this is actually true or not, but legend has it that at one time, that song was in the Guinness Book of World Records. I think this is bullshit. I don't think this is true, but it would be a cool story if it was true. For being the song that got the most people actually moshing in a room at one time. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know, but somebody told me that a long time ago, or I read it somewhere. And you always gotta believe it when somebody just randomly tells you stuff, you know.
I do. Why would they make that up? I mean, what would be the point of making that up?
Yeah, that's true. Why would they make it up? But my question is, I've actually tried looking for this. I've tried verifying this, and I can't find any verification. So my question would be where this person got that information. And the only thing I can think of, there was a lot of zines going on around that time, and so maybe it was in some zine or something, you know? But anyway, Ad Rock, or no, was it Ad Rock or Mike D? I think it was Ad Rock. One of the members of the Beastie Boys played bass with this group on their first album. And then Grand Royal had some sort of, I don't know if it was a falling out or what the story is, but for whatever reason, they signed to Epitaph. That was in 94 when they put out My Crazy Life, but for whatever reason, they signed to Epitaph, put out their second record called Proud to Be, and that was on Epitaph in 95. And those two records were part of my teenage, existence, man. In the summer of 96, when I was 15, 16 years old, I was listening to both of those records all the time. And this is probably actually one of my personal favorite, just punk bands, period. But anyway, their second record, it's interesting, though, because it is Ad Rock, because he's Adam Horovitz. So on the second album, Adam Horovitz actually is still, in the credits as being, executive producer or something. But the very first song, see, DFL had this, they almost, operated like a hip-hop group, you know, because they would always say their name in their songs. Dead fucking last, you know, they would always scream that, you know. And at the end of the first song off of their second album, Proud to Be, the singer, the lyrics to that song sounds like they're talking shit about, a record label. And then at the end, the singer says, "Goodbye, Grand Royal." So, I don't know, it sounds like they're talking shit about Grand Royal, but Adam Horovitz still served as executive producer. And they had a song on the album called Minus Adam, which makes you think that, okay, they're talking shit about Adam. He's no longer with the band. But Adam Horovitz is a guest on that song. So it's almost like they're playing some, I don't know, inside joke or something or whatever. Maybe that's totally not what it is, but that's what it seems like. Anyway, fast forward, they put out their third record in 97 on Epitaph, and that's this one, Grateful. This is probably my favorite release from them because, number one, they released it as one track, but there's actually 17 tracks on it. And it sounds like a rehearsal tape. That's how they presented it. I literally think that's what they did, too. I mean, it sounds like they just pressed play maybe on a 4-track or something like that and just played the songs. So it sounds super raw, and at this time there wasn't really a lot of hardcore punk that was sort of going on like this, especially on Epitaph Records, because I mean this was the period of time where bands like Rancid and Offspring came from that label. And so it was just a really like interesting, to me anyway, interesting group to have kind of come out of that. But what I really like about this record is it's so, just like all their records, it's so incredibly heavy and absurdly angry to the point of being absurd at times. And I think that they have a sense of humor about it, because there's a lot of like, on all their records, there's always these sort of like weird interludes kind of going on, and they kind of just seemed like, they sound like a band that just really didn't give a shit, but then they also did at the same time. Like they took their band really seriously, but they didn't care if like their recordings sounded pristine, yeah, so to speak, going against the grain or whatever. But there's like some really weird stuff on this record too, like just like the beginning starts off with like 15 seconds of just pure like feedback that is just, you know, it sounds psychotic. And then I don't know if they're messing around with like a xylophone, or if it's they're like listening to lounge music and that just happened to be in the background and it caught. I don't really know what's going on, and then all of a sudden it just breaks into this like punishing hardcore. Like I said, it just sounds like a rehearsal tape, and I think that's pretty rad. Honestly, Eric, some of this stuff reminded me a little bit of your old band Los Voltage, a little bit.
Yeah, I could hear that.
Some of it reminded me of that, and but you know, there's some psychedelic kind of stuff towards the end too. Just a little bit of like, I don't know, like they just sound like they're just jamming a little bit. Like, you know, it just sounds like a group of guys just sort of maybe getting stoned, getting drunk maybe. I don't know if that's what they were doing or if they were straight edge or whatever. But then just locking themselves in a room and fuck it, let's just, I don't know, maybe it was the last record of their contract and they were just like, you know what, fuck it, what do we have to lose? We'll just give Epitaph this.
Yeah.
I mean, I really, this is probably I would recommend anybody who's into hardcore punk, I would recommend giving this band a shot, but I wouldn't start with this record. Maybe. I would definitely start with Proud to Be. That was definitely like a classic album, but this is probably my personal, I like the way it's presented as just like one track. And yeah. So yeah, I really enjoyed this record. I've listened to this record several times, but I was revisiting it pretty hardcore last week.
Yeah. Awesome. I gotta be honest, at first, when I first started this, I was like, okay, this is just gonna be one song. And so when it started, I was like, oh shit, they can't just have this one hardcore song for 27 minutes, right? So I listened for a while, and things kept happening. Things kept happening in the production, in the songs, in the presentation, that made me keep going, wait, there's something else here. There's something else going on here. And I kept researching it. I probably researched this record more than any of the other ones, even the ones I picked for this week. Right. And here's the reason. Here's the first thing that happened. The album cover looks just like the Battle of Los Angeles by Rage Against the Machine.
Yes, it does.
Exactly.
Yes, it does. You're totally
It's credited as Nick. Nick did the artwork.
No shit.
There's
Holy
two
crap.
band members in this called Nick. And so, but on the Rage Against the Machine one, it's some guy named I don't know, Joe Kirby or something. It's not Nick. So I'm like, so this came out 2 years before that. Did they just straight up steal it? I don't know.
That's a good question. I didn't even catch that. Good eye, Eric.
I mean, it's exactly.
No, yeah. Now that I'm looking at it, I mean, that's something I should have caught right away myself. But
yeah,
now that I'm looking at it, I'm crazy. Like, wow, yeah, that's insane how close it is.
That was the first thing that started getting me to research this stuff. And then as I listened more, I was like, wait, this is like the Beastie Boys. And I'm not talking about some old bullshit, the hardcore stuff. I'm talking about the rap by the Beastie Boys. A lot of times, one singer will sing the front part of a line, the first part of a line. Another singer comes in and joins them on the second part of the line, which the Beastie Boys do essentially every line of every song. Constantly. And so I was like, what the fuck? So I looked it up, and then it said Ad Rock started this band with another dude. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then as you listen more, it's like there's tons of almost like dub production techniques. All of a sudden there will be like a warble in the sound that you know is on purpose, or the vocals will just delay like dub style like for a long time, and you're like, what the hell is going on?
Yep.
And it does get sort of psychedelic. And there's songs that have like Indian tabla and stuff. Like, I would say that in a way this is really like Ill Communication.
A lot.
And so I had to keep looking into it more and more. And the other thing I noticed was, for me personally, this had a bounce to it that a lot of hardcore doesn't. Some crossover does, like Suicidal.
Right.
And so I was like, these drums are very, very, very much like the first Suicidal record. Turns out, AWOL Smith, the drummer for Suicidal, was in this band. So, and he also played on Ill Communication and BS2000.
BS2000, yes.
So
Amory Smith.
Yeah, from Suicidal Tendencies.
Yeah,
so, like, it just kept adding up to, like, all these things I was noticing were being verified. And I was like, this is fucking crazy. Because when it started, I was like, okay, just classic hardcore, great. But as I listened, it wasn't at all.
No.
Like, it really does a lot of stuff. And I didn't listen to the other records. And so I don't know if they do all this same crazy bullshit on those. But I would say this one kind of blew my mind with some of the risks that they took and a lot of the production ideas and how it's presented. I thought it was really cool. And when it first started, I did not expect to think that.
This is actually, I actually was thinking about doing the second one, Proud to Be. Mm-hmm. You ask about the other records if they do a lot of this stuff. Not to the degree that they do on this album. Mm-hmm. There is some of that stuff on the second record, Proud to Be, but not nearly, like, Proud to Be is a lot more of a, it's still chaotic in its sort of fast, well, chaos, like that this record is. Right. But it, like, it doesn't have all the crazy shit that this record did. That's kind of one of the reasons why I picked this record, was because I was really curious what you would think of a hardcore band kind of doing some of this stuff. And also,
I thought it was great. Yeah.
And because again, some of it, the approach reminded me a little bit of Low Voltage.
Yeah, I can hear that. I can hear the use of delays in there, the fast breaks, but with long jams and that combination. Yeah, for sure. Psychedelic hardcore. It's not something a lot of people have done. So
and
I can hear that.
One thing real quick before we move on to your pick. I got to say that what a record like this verifies for me as well is just how much interesting shit the Beastie Boys were involved with after License to Ill.
Yeah,
I mean, because when they started that Grand Royal label, there was all kinds of shit like this, like weird shit that they were affiliated with, from BS 2000 to Luscious Jackson to Ben Lee and Noise Addict, Brand Van 3000, and I mean just all kinds of weird. There was that country album that Mike D put out. You ever heard that one?
I don't think so.
I can't remember what he went by the name. Country Mike, I think, is what he's called. I think it's really good. It's almost, I think it might even predate like 12 Golden Country Greats by Ween.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean,
I'll have to check it out.
Maybe it doesn't predate. Maybe it came out later. I don't remember. I don't think you can find it on like record or CD or anything like that. I think basically YouTube has it. Anyway, so yeah, I'm glad you liked it, Eric.
Oh yeah, I was really surprised by it. Like I said, when it started, I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And not that I don't like hardcore. It's just like it. Sometimes when things are newer, but they're trying to capture a sound of something older, like I don't necessarily give it that much interest. Not always, but when it comes to certain genres, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're trying to sound like this and you're doing it great, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I expected, but no, I was blown away at the end of the day. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. So my first pick is Code 9, Kode 9, plus Spaceape. And this is called Memories of the Future. I don't remember what year that came out. Let me see. Anyway, it's it's just pretty deep dub, electronic dub. And it looks like 2006 it came out. I think that it's done really well. The songs or the pieces, however you want to look at it, they're long, they're pretty dense. Spaceape's vocal delivery is really interesting. It's almost drone-ish to an extent. One thing I really like about the production of this, though, is that they keep pretty much every song will have a sound like a reed instrument. I have to believe that's on purpose since it happens every song. And I think that Memories of the Future, that idea, that might be part of it. So a lot of songs have actual samples of accordions or other reed type instruments, or they create a reed sound with synthesizers. It's basically subtractive synthesis. You have a square wave, probably a couple of them, combine them, detune them, and you raise the attack so it comes in slowly, and it's like, it makes a reed instrument sound. Anyway, that didn't need to be said, probably. But so every song on here, for some reason, has these sort of reed instrument sounds to it. I think that it's really cool. My only thing about this record is I think it could have been quite a bit shorter. I don't think they accomplished anything in the second half hour that they didn't in the first half hour. But if you're sitting around and you just want to chill, like deep, hard chill, this will get you there and keep you there for an hour. I think it's pretty straightforward, kind of electronic, kind of synthy dub stuff. With these picks, I usually pick them at the beginning of the week and then I listen to them. So sometimes I don't have a million nice things to say about them. But as far as dub goes, if you are not into it and you are looking for a place to get into it, I think this is pretty accessible. It's deep and bassy and funky, and like I said, the Spaceape's vocals are super cool and draw you in. So yeah, what do you think, Dan?
Well, I first of all, let me say I love the name The Spaceape.
Yeah.
And I also love the name Memories of the Future, as well as Code 9. And so I got to say that for me, this is exactly what you you mentioned before is number one, I have to agree with you right off the bat about the length of the project. I think for me personally, it would have probably benefited if it was maybe a good 3 or 4 songs shorter, like you mentioned. I did think that towards the last half of the record, I did think it kind of got a little repetitive. That being said, this is perfect, like, chilling music. This is the kind of music that I would put on if I was, cleaning, or if I wanted to do something, like, because as chill as it is, I could also imagine myself being productive listening to it in a weird sort of way. I wouldn't say that it was 100% a record that I got into. It's like, I don't dislike it. I think that it was really interesting, and I think that the use of effects and electronic sounds were very fascinating. I think I only listened to this once, and so my suspicion is something like this, because it's largely, we've talked about dub music before and how I like a lot of dub music, and this is definitely a different take on it compared to something like The Scientist or something like that,
Yeah.
But like this version of dub is something that I think I would have to be exposed to probably beyond just like one listen before I would fully get it. But I do think that it was interesting. It was definitely an entertaining listen for the most part. But it would be, I think right now I would say that it's not something that me personally, that I would revisit a lot. It's,
for sure.
But it definitely had its place, and I could see how it would appeal to a lot of different people. This kind of stuff is popular all over the place. It's like really like electronic music, like the stuff that's kind of in this vein, like whether it's dubstep or whether it's like electronic dub, or even like drum and bass, jungle music, stuff like that. I feel like it's more of a something you have to like experience than just listen to. In other words, I think stuff like this would be really cool to see live, maybe, or just to kind of go and just, like I feel like a social experience would enhance, you know what I mean?
For sure.
This kind of thing. And I feel that same way about like something like baby metal, for instance, like baby metal is not something that I would listen to. Are you familiar with baby metal?
Yeah. Well, I've heard a couple songs.
Okay,
yeah.
It's not.
I haven't listened to it much.
It's not something that I would listen to, but if if somebody was like, "Hey, you want to go see baby metal? What else are you gonna do?" I think it would be an interesting live experience.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I feel about this kind of music in general, even dubstep, because dubstep I think is interesting, but I think it would be more interesting just to kind of see live,
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
So yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not sure if I would come back to it a lot.
Right.
But
yeah, I agree.
Anyway, okay, so that's the next one. So this actually, this next one I'm going to talk about is from a group called Milemarker, and it's called Ominosity. Or Ominosity, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not really 100% sure. But, okay, this is gonna sound really weird. This is probably my least favorite album from this band, Milemarker. So I actually chose this week my least favorite album from this band, at least so far, but I'm starting to get into it more, which is why I chose it. Because it's kind of... are you familiar with Milemarker at all, Eric?
Nope, this was my introduction.
Okay, so, dang. Maybe I should have picked a different record. So Milemarker were a band that existed in the late 90s kind of hardcore scene with a lot of electronic influences thrown in. They were kind of like, imagine if like something along the lines of like At the Drive-In meshed with Kraftwerk. Like, as odd as that sounds, they had a really great record called Frigid Form Cell. And that probably is my favorite record from them, although they have a couple of others. This record came out, and it was their last record they put out before they broke up, but they have since like reunited. For some reason, this band, it's one of those bands that just sort of it just fell to the wayside. Like, I feel like in the 2000s, I think this record came out in 2000. I think this band could have been maybe a lot bigger or heard of. It's just like a lot of bands that sort of were in that scene that, you know, as soon as the big like post-punk sort of thing happened where a lot of new bands, you know, popped out of nowhere and were getting big on MTV and stuff like that. Sort of like the, it's the typical story of sort of like the pioneers before them or whatever, you know what I mean? Like Milemarker was kind of there before any of that. But by the time that they got any sort of recognition, it was already too late and they broke up sort of thing. This was like the last record they put out. And I remember there was a lot of kind of controversy about it because a lot of the fans of this band, that happened to be a lot of my friends, didn't really care for it because there was this sort of... the stuff they were kind of doing, it was quite a bit different than some of the earlier releases. There's a lot more kind of, I feel, minimalist approach to what they're doing on this record compared to, it's not as intense, but, and when I first heard it, I kind of agreed with everybody about it, but now that I listen to it as a 40-year-old adult, it definitely, I hear it through different ears. I think it's actually a very interesting album, and it's starting to creep up to maybe possibly being, you know, one of my favorites from this group. Like I said, this band, they just kind of, they were pretty popular within a scene. And then they just kind of fizzled out, you know, before they... I think I saw them at Gabe's in Iowa City. And I want to say they were playing with Girls Against Boys or somebody like that. Although I could be wrong. I do remember the singer, Al Burian. He used to do this zine. I think they lived in Chicago. And the name of the zine was called Burn Collector, and it was very liberal. And I remember he said to the audience that Iowa City is supposed to be the most liberal city in Iowa, and just down the street there's a huge swastika painted on the side of a building. And I remember like everybody in the audience just kind of like stood there sort of just, well, I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah, well, we didn't do it.
Yeah, we didn't do it, exactly. It was sort of like, I do remember that I found that kind of a little, I didn't quite know what to think of that, because it almost sounded like he was like, you know, blaming us, like, you guys should be a little more on alert about what other people do in your city. And it's like, at the end of the day, there's nothing that any of us can do if some piece of shit wants to, you know, paint a swastika on the side of a building, you know? I mean, what are we gonna do? We're at a punk show. I do remember having that sort of reaction to it, but they put on a really stunning performance.
Nice.
And so yeah, I mean, if you're into like the post-hardcore, this one I think has a lot of atmospheric sort of stuff going on. Maybe a little bit of studio experimentation. Sometimes the songs don't necessarily feel like complete, and I don't know if that's kind of on purpose or not. But yeah, there definitely seems to be some kind of weird. Yeah, it's kind of a weird album. What did you think of it, Eric?
Well, again, when it started, I was like, okay, this seems like kind of like the hardcore or emo stuff that I totally missed, and so I don't know anything about it. But as I listened, again, I had almost the same experience with Milemarker as I did DFL.
Yeah?
I'm really glad it sounds like that you picked this recording versus the other ones, because coming into this blind, I didn't really know they were a hardcore band, actually. I looked on Spotify, like the, if you like this, you might like this. What do they call it? Fans also like, I guess.
Yeah, recommended if you like, or something like that.
And it was all hardcore bands or emo/hardcore bands. And I was like, what the hell? And the reason is because I really don't hear it. Like, I hear that there's screaming sometimes, and I hear that there's like dissonant, jangly, kind of angular guitar stuff happening sometimes. But really, honestly, this sounded to me almost just like, so, Brainiac, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was Brainiac, and then the singer died, and the other dude went on to do Enon.
Right.
I honestly feel like it could be a bridge between Brainiac and Enon. Like, it's still really aggressive, and there's a lot of screaming and stuff, and a lot of dissonance and noise, but it is really poppy. Like, there were moments that it just sounded like a heavy Rentals to me.
Yeah.
Like, and it's awesome. I really enjoyed it. Brainiac's one of my favorite groups ever.
Oh, they're so good.
I think that it had so much of that sound to it. Like, it wasn't until, like I said, I looked at the other bands that you're supposed to check out if you liked and stuff, where I was like, oh shit, this is a hardcore band? Like, I had no idea. And so I came away from it being like, I don't know, this is really good electronic punk rock, or like even just experimental synth music, like Brainiac. Like, I seriously did not know this was hardcore music, and so I ended up, I think, having a different experience than most people would with this, because I didn't go into it expecting it to sound like anything. And so what I got were like really great synths, arpeggiated synths throughout. It's kind of poppy at times. The vocals were poppy at times, and I came away from it feeling like, wow, this could set right in there with Causeway and Brainiac and Trans Am and things like that. I had no idea it was hardcore music. So
I think
interesting.
And I think that's like what you just described, that probably is my experience, because I was familiar with their stuff before this, which is a little bit more hardcore, but not, when I say hardcore, I mean like at the drive-in-ish.
Right.
Post-hardcore or whatever.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So it sounds like it's a good thing I picked this record then, because
I think so.
I think
really
you probably
and
I think it's a good thing also. I was going between this or Frigid Form Cell, and I ultimately picked this one because this record is really starting to grow on me now. I mean, it took a while. I listened to it when it first came out and kind of just didn't have any interest in Milemarker after they broke up, and then I just, for some reason, this came back to me in a big way this week. And so yeah, it's a weird album, I think, and but weird in a good way. And you know, when I say that it's my least favorite Milemarker record right now, I don't really mean that. I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, I mean, it's just, you know, like, I still love it. You know what I mean? But it's working its way up. You know, because they have a lot of albums before this, like Futurisms is one, Changing Caring Humans, Anesthesia, that are all just like classics to me. You know, like I listened to them so much, like when I was younger, like in my early 20s, and I don't remember what year this one came out, but yeah, I do think it is a fantastic record. And actually, I can definitely see the comparisons to like Brainiac and Trans Am. I think even in their earlier works, if you ever go back and listen to their earlier stuff, Erik, I think you'll hear that I think you'll hear those comparisons in that as well. I think their earlier stuff was a lot more accessible than this record, and so, which I think is I think it's a good thing that they, you know, put out a record that was just weird and in a good way. You know what I mean? I really dig it. Yeah, it's becoming, definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes my favorite Milemarker record at some point.
I'm glad it's the first thing I heard because I really liked it.
Awesome. So. Well,
yeah.
There we go.
Nice.
All right, so pick number 2 for you.
My second one is an album called Crushing by Julia Jacklin. It came out in 2019. I first heard of this on Facebook because Dave from House of Large Sizes posted that he had been listening to it. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I will say that overall, this is, again, pretty normal. I know I had a pretty normal pick last week, but every once in a while, I just kind of like things that are, you know, kind of normal. So,
sure.
I think that the songs on here are the standout. I think the songwriting is really good. Like, I put up with a lot of like music that's weird for weird's sake, and the production and the sound and everything like that is the important part to that. But when I hear someone I really think is writing really actually amazing songs, the go places you don't expect, are well crafted, they're pretty, the words have been thought about, and I think this falls into that. I think they're just great songs. I think that she has a really cool voice that seemingly can do just about anything. It has a cool sort of lo-fi production feel to it. It's really bassy. Like, I think if you had this on vinyl, it would pop it out of the grooves, honestly. Like, it's just so lo-fi. But yeah, overall, I would say that this is sort of like, it seems like a breakup album. But it's like the regular breakup album where you're like, the person's getting through the breakup, sort of. But what's really cool about it is that it's not like angry. It's not angry at the person, and it's not just sad. Like, she's advocating for what she wants out of a future relationship, what she wants for herself. There's a lot of like body autonomy stuff in here, which I know sounds strange, but it's like, it's important for people to have those voices, because I don't think we ever really have. I think that there's still a lot of love for the ex in this sort of breakup album, like in a real way. I think it seems to really care about this person still, and it makes it even more heartbreaking that it's not angry and sad, that it's like someone really cares about someone but they can't be with them. I just think it's a really cool experience to go through this record, and there are moments where it just seems really poppy and things like that, but that's kind of fun too. So yeah, it's one of my favorite things that's come out in the last couple of years. I think that if you just want really good songwriting and someone that can do it well, then this is a pretty good record. So, yeah, what'd you think, Dan?
Yeah, man, I really enjoyed this. This totally reminds me of the in a sort of weird sort of way. This reminds me of some of the stuff that like my older sister would listen to, like in the '90s a little bit, like Juliana Hatfield, Lisa Loeb, a combination of like, you know, maybe some Ani DeFranco kind of thrown in a little bit, but she completely, comparisons aside, Julie Jacqueline totally has like her own voice, her own style. The guitar playing is gorgeous. Like you said, I really enjoyed the fact too that it was kind of a breakup record from a different perspective than just sort of being pissed off and bitter. I think it would be much harder to write a breakup song or album that way than just sort of the you know, pissed off or sad way, you know? And so that's absolutely something that I can't, I mean, I totally love the way she pulled that off, for sure. The lyrics are great. I definitely sounded, you know, adult, sort of indie folk type stuff. And yeah, I really like this kind of stuff now and again, for sure. I mean, and the guitar playing is gorgeous. That's one of the things that really got me, like, is just the tone of guitar. And it's definitely not simple music, but it's, you know, definitely, you know, like you said, it's kind of just a little, you know, it's a little conventional, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. In fact, it's a good thing about it, you know. Like, that's, I mean, sometimes that's just what you need. And no, yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Cool.
There was one song, let me bring up the track list. There was one song in particular that really blew me away. Let me see here. Yeah, Julie Jacqueline. Sorry, I'm kind of like
oh, not at all.
Looking up here. I'm trying to remember what song it was, and I'm probably not even going to remember. It was later on in the album. I think it was the track "Turn Me Down." I think that's the one. So track number 9. I just remember just really loving that song. It's either "Turn Me Down" or it's "Comfort." It's like one of the last 2 tracks. But I'm going to have to listen to it again. I listened to it a couple of times.
Sweet.
And yeah, it's fantastic stuff. I really do enjoy it, for sure.
Good deal.
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay, so... Oh, did you have something else to say?
Nope, I was going to say, what's your last one?
Okay, so the last pick that I have is a singer-songwriter by the name of Anna, and it's spelled AN_NA. And the name of the record is No Future Is Now Reality. This, I actually got introduced last week from our mutual friend, or enemy, depending on how you want to look at him, Chuck, that we talked about. Shout out to Chuck, though. He's been introducing me to a lot of interesting music for being the person that he is. No, but for real, though, he sent me a link to this and said this is a really good album. So I listened to it, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's like electronic pop with like an industrial tinge to it. I feel like it's what I would want to hear out of like I don't even want to call her a pop singer, because she really isn't. It's not. It's kind of difficult for me to explain, actually. But it's got like sort of like an arty pop sort of thing going on. And I don't know. The last song, Punks, I think is absolutely crazy. And I just really like the beats. I like her approach to vocals, and I just thought it was a really interesting record. And it just came out, I think, last year, or maybe it came out this year. I don't remember. It came out last year, the tail end of last year, 2020. I have a feeling that if I would have heard this before we made our picks of 2020, I probably would have put this on my list.
Nice.
I just really enjoyed it. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I like this kind of stuff, sometimes I don't. But when I do, it really hits home. And I don't know. There's something about it. I don't really have a lot to really say other than I just thought it was dope. What do you think, Erik?
Yeah, I liked it quite a lot. I will say that for me personally, it was very much just very straightforward industrial dance goth music.
Sure.
From the 90s. Like, it sounded a lot like Front 242 or Frontline Assembly, Nitzer Ebb. Like, the industrial stuff that sort of happened before or adjacent to all the industrial that used, like, distorted electric guitars. Because there were sort of different kinds of industrial music. And so, like, industrial dance was a different sort of thing. But this very much almost feels like a retro group in a sense. Like someone doing that style of music, which is awesome. I really like it when people do that, actually, because they have the whole of that entire time period to draw from. It's kind of like there's a neo thrash band called Municipal Waste, who are phenomenal.
Yes.
And the reason they're phenomenal is because they literally have every thrash album ever made to listen to and be inspired by and learn from. And even though, like, they're sort of taking the piss out of it, like, they're funny, the music itself, they're amazing. And I do think it's because they're not really having to invent things. They just take the best things and use it. So I think this is sort of in that same vein. It's like very just goth industrial dance, and it's like really well done, and the vocal performance is really cool. It's like really nihilistic sounding, very sort of deadpan, which is perfect. I think the songs are cool. Yeah, I love the whole thing. Like, I feel like, sometimes groups that are doing sort of an older thing can be annoying. I didn't find this that way at all. I thought it was really, like, there was a lot of nods to the past, but still covering some new ground. So I think it's great. I think that if you like that stuff and you've listened to all the old records, then why not listen to a new record? And with that being said, there's also a group called She Wants Revenge, who, if you like this, I would check them out too. They're a new group, but it's like kind of like Bauhaus and that sort of thing, but new. So I'll slip an extra recommendation in there too.
There you go.
No, I think this was really good.
So I gotta actually correct myself. I thought this whole time that Anna was just one person. You were actually right. It's actually a duo. Two people from Quebec named Elaine and Anna.
Oh.
And
no.
And yeah, I just found this out. So it's not. I thought it was like one person. Like,
gotcha.
That, that's what I thought. That's how recent I was introduced to this project.
Right.
I totally agree with you, though. I was trying to find the right words because there are times where it sounded like it was like somebody like a girl trying to kind of do like almost like a pop thing, but then it would turn into like dark techno sort of thing,
Right.
like dark techno and then the goth thing. And See, I'm largely unfamiliar with a lot of industrial. That's why I was struggling to try and compare, because really my knowledge of industrial it begins and ends with Ministry and Nine Inch Nails. I've never really listened to Front 242 or Skinny Puppy or KMF.
Yeah, there was a lot of Skinny Puppy kind of sounds in this as well.
Yeah. And so I guess I was struggling to kind of, but dude, if that's how this stuff sounds, I'm going to have to go back and listen to some of that stuff.
Yeah, I will say that this is a little more straightforward and song-based, which is a good thing. Because a lot of those old records, they're relying on the sounds that they're making.
Sure, it's like more...
The songs aren't really anything. It's just like a guy going, stepping in the darkness.
Right.
And, just like nonsense, like... But this is a little more song-oriented, which is great, but the sounds themselves are right from that era, like 100%.
So you could see where I was kind of getting, like, pop music kind of a little bit. Okay, all right. Yeah, I was just like, absolutely. I was trying to because I also recognize that what this group was doing was also a lot darker than, like, say, I don't know, Ariana Grande or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like it definitely. So I was struggling to try and find like a comparison there.
Right.
So that's interesting.
I would say song oriented is a little more. It is. I mean, it is poppy in its own way. But
sure.
It's not poppy like pop music.
Sure. Yeah. In any situation, I thought it was great. Yeah, so that nice. Concludes our 3 releases. Do you have any?
Well, I still have one left.
Do you have one left?
What?
Oh, yes, you do. Holy shit! I am so sorry, Erik. Holy shit! Not only that, it's like, what the fuck, man? I am totally off of it tonight, man.
That's okay.
Okay. Anyway, sorry about that, Erik. Okay, so.
Right.
So
you're like, oh my god, we did almost just an hour like we planned. No.
Yeah, that's kind of what.
Here I come.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, and then I'm like, holy shit, yeah, no, it doesn't conclude our 3.
Yeah.
Man, I am so sorry, Erik.
That's okay.
All right.
That's all right.
So third pick.
Yeah, my last one is a project called White Noise. The record is called An Electric Storm. It came out in 1969. And I actually don't even know where to start with this. Like, literally, give me 1 second. Because, okay, first things first. I say this every week about something. I can't believe I've never heard of this. Blah, blah, blah. But for real, I can't believe I've never heard this. This was, I can't remember the guy's name, an American who was inspired by the electronic music happening in England at the BBC's radiophonic workshop, who up to this point had done like the Doctor Who theme. Delia Derbyshire was involved in this. Delia Derbyshire is like an electronic artist. Anyone who listens to early experimental electronic music, they will drop her name. It's just the way it is.
Right.
So she's one of the forefront people, along with I don't even know, Daphne Oram, Harry Kingsley, stuff like that. So anyway, that's the first thing I wanted to say. Is I can't believe I've never heard of this, because it's right in there with things I should have heard of. Second, this is one of the best things I've ever heard. Like, I know that I'm hyperbolic. I know I talk out my ass all the time. I know that everything is the greatest, the best, blah, blah, blah. For real, this is one of the best things I've ever heard. I've heard a million things that sound like this, but I don't know how to explain it. I don't know where this came from. I don't know how they came up with it. I don't hear how they drew anything from anyone else, but everything else that I love seems to sound like this. Like there are moments that sound like the Beach Boys. There's parts that sound like the Perry Kingsley, like in Sound from Way Out. White Light era Velvet Underground, Of Montreal, and all the Elephant Six. Bruce Hack, United States of America, The Residents, Bell and Sebastian, like just so much stuff. And it's crazy. I mean, honestly, I probably could have done it without the 30 seconds of sex noises in the second song, but
yes,
whatever. The thing that makes it different than all of the other stuff, though, like, and especially experimental stuff, Medium, is the massage and, Morton Subotnick and even Wendy Carlo stuff is like these are songs. Like, they are songs, and they have really cool melodies. But they're cut up, they're sliced up, they're panned, the synthesizers are sick. Like, I don't know. I can't say enough about it. I think that if you like any of the stuff that I mentioned, like, you have to hear this. It's just one of the most satisfying listens I've ever had. So, what do you think, Dan?
Oh man, dude. I have to admit, I mean, I have to agree with you 100%, man. This is one of the best things that's ever been released. In my opinion, it's like, I can't believe this was recorded in 68, first of all. Yeah. 1968. You've just been killing it with these old, like, just weird recordings, man. First you got me hooked on the Silver Apples.
Yeah.
Now it's like this white noise thing. And, yeah, I can't even begin to explain it. Parts of it sounded very terrifying, but in such a very satisfying way. And all those groups you just mentioned, the Elephant Six, I definitely, like, there's no way in hell that the Elephant Six Collective didn't sit down and listen to this.
Or like even Broadcast or...
Stereo...
dang, what's that other group? I just forgot their name right when I was about to say it.
I would say
Stereo
like...
Lab. Sorry.
Stereo Lab.
Yeah.
I would say like Add Into X.
Yeah, I feel like everyone has had this album, and they've all kept it secret so that they can keep stealing from it, and no one else knows.
I even hear like Ween on this.
Sure.
You know, like,
yeah.
And Mr. Bungle, like Disco Volante,
sure.
Some of the spookier parts of Disco Volante, like, sound like it was like borrowed directly from this.
Yeah.
And it's such a, like, when I first heard the name, I mean, you're thinking white noise. Like, okay, so yeah, this is going to be a noise record. You know, that's what I thought I was going to hear, you know, that at first impression. And then I just heard that first track, and it's like Love Without Sound. And it's this like beautiful, creepy, sort of weird psychedelic pop or something, you know, like,
yeah.
And that's kind of what it turns out to be like throughout the entire record, is this deranged. I'm betting David Lynch too, man. Like, I kind of hear some of that creepiness of, like, you know, the music that you hear on like Twin Peaks. And
well, not only that, but the sound design elements too. Like, there's a part where there's drums, a drum break, and it's sliced and panned, and it's ridiculous. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Like, I was listening to this, and something happened, I think, on the song The Visitation, which is an 11-minute opus. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
But something so crazy happened on it that I said to myself, Jesus Christ, right? And at that exact moment, the singer in the band said Jesus Christ. And I was like, oh my God, I can't handle this.
That's insane.
I know.
That's insane. I remember that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I remember that part you're talking about too.
Yeah.
Wow. And then that last track, Black Mass.
It's crazy.
I mean,
yeah.
Okay, here's what's interesting. Is Travis found a record at Goodwill called Black Mass Lucifer. Have you ever heard of this?
I'm not sure.
It was,
I don't know.
It was a record made in like the 60s or 70s. And I wonder if it has any connection to this at all. Because when I first saw that, I was like, Black Mass.
Yeah, by Lucifer. Yeah,
okay, so
Lucifer. I have heard that one.
So Lucifer is the name of the band?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a completely different thing then.
I think so.
Okay, gotcha. In any situation, this is just insane, man. I definitely hear the Residents, for sure. I hear like the Residents, no doubt. I mean, it's just, but the thing is, it's such a. How does stuff like this just like come out like in the 60s and we don't hear about it till we're in our 40s?
I know.
How does that happen?
I hate it. Like, it is so frustrating to, at the age of 44, hear the best album you've ever heard.
Yeah.
Like, it's good. I'm glad I heard it. But I could have heard this when I was 20 and it would have changed my life.
Well, now, okay, see, and that's probably the difference between you and I, is that I think if I heard this at 20, I probably it probably wouldn't have sunken in the way that it does now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
For me,
that's a really good point.
For me, when I was 20, I still wanted to hear heavy music. I still wanted to hear basic screaming. I still wanted to hear Converge. There's nothing wrong with Converge. I love Converge. But that's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that you're right. I think this would have come off as pretty damn goofy.
I'm kind of glad that I heard it now, because I'm afraid that if I would have heard this at the age of 20, I just would have dismissed it as some sort of art album or something that just is boring and stupid, and I wouldn't have seen the beauty and the genius of it at age 20. There's a lot of stuff. Residents, I was like that with the Residents, like at age 20, until I was like in my 30s, until I heard Meet the Residents, because I bought a Residents, the Greatest Hits Residents record or whatever. It's not called Greatest Hits. Petting Zoo.
Oh yeah.
Which has like 2 songs from every album up until then. And I just remember listening to it and I'm like, yeah, I mean, this is kind of cool, but I don't see what the hype is. You know, I
liked it better when Primus covered
it. yeah. I just kind of was just like, I don't know what this. I don't know what everybody's getting. You know, and then I just like I bought Meet the Residents for no reason whatsoever. I just like. It's like, you know what? I like this cover. I think it's hilarious that they're like doing a satire of the Meet the Beatles, you know? I love that reference. And you know what? I'm going to buy this. And that's when it clicked that, hey, the Residents are awesome. Yeah. You know? I just...
No, that's a really good point. Yeah. Like, I don't know if I would have gotten into the Residents without having heard Ween and Mr. Bungle.
Yeah, no, those are like the first 2, like Mr. Bungle and Ween are probably, and Beck, early Beck. Those are like my 3 like sort of entry points into like weirder music. Because from them, I went back and listened to the Residents. I went back and listened to Captain Beefheart. I went back and listened to Frank Zappa, you know, and the Mothers of Invention and whatever, you know. And yeah, man, like, so in a way, I'm pissed off that this had to be introduced to me now. And I'm glad that you put this on your list, because this is just like, I'm coming back to this all the time, I think. Yeah. At least for a while.
And apparently they have a second record, so...
Yeah, I saw that on Wikipedia. I wonder what that second record is about. I wonder if it's any good.
I don't know.
I'm very curious. I think
that'd be great if it was one of the worst things we've ever heard.
Yeah. It was like just complete like disco. They tried to become like popular in the 70s. I mean that stuff has happened. I mean, I I couldn't say this for sure, but I heard that the Bee Gees were great until they turned disco.
Like, yeah, their early records are really great.
I've never heard any. I always thought Bee Gees were always a disco band.
Yeah, so did I until I didn't, and then I realized they were really great. Yeah,
and I still think it's hilarious that they were picked to be in the Sgt. Pepper's movie.
Yeah, that's a pretty bad movie.
That's a really bizarre thing. That and the whole like Kiss meets the Phantom at the park.
I like that one though. No, it's sort of endearing.
I did too. I loved it too, but like, man, it's like bands don't make movies like that anymore, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder.
Did you know that Cheap Trick was supposed to be in Rock and Roll High School?
Were they supposed to be the ones instead of Ramones?
Yeah. Wouldn't that have been terrible?
That would have been, yeah. Wow.
I love Cheap Trick.
So did Joey Ramone.
Oh yeah.
There was actually there's a documentary you can watch if you're interested in this at all. I'm a sucker for music documentaries, even if it's about bad music. But it's about the Lollapalooza up until '97 or '96, excuse me, because '96 was the last. 97 was the last year, but 96 was the year that a lot of people say Lollapalooza died because that's the year that Metallica headlined.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And anyway, so there's that year was Metallica. It was like the weirdest lineup. It was like Metallica, Soundgarden, which that totally makes sense. But then then there was this band called Psychotica, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with.
It sounds bad.
Yeah, they were like that sort of gothy, sort of like, I don't even want to say new metal because this pretty much, well, I guess Korn was out, Deftones was out, but it pretty much predates new metal, like when new metal blew up and everybody became new metal. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I would say it was more of like almost like a White Zombie thing maybe or something.
Okay.
But anyway, Psychotica. But then like throughout the whole summer, a bunch of acts just made appearances. Like Rage Against the Machine would show up, and in the Illinois, I think they played Rockford, Illinois. Cheap Trick showed up to play, and
nice.
There's this footage of Cheap Trick playing Surrender, and Joey Ramone comes out and sings Surrender with Cheap Trick.
Nice.
And then he's backstage with Rancid because Rancid is part of the deal. Ramones and Rancid. It was actually Ramones' last tour, like Lollapalooza '96 was. And Rancid were also part of the tour. And so Lars Fredriksson from Rancid was playing the Pinhead every day during Ramones. And I remember like they go over to Lars, like Joey Ramone's like, yeah, I got to sing with Cheap Trick today, and I've always been a big fan. And then Lars is like, yeah, I get to be the Pinhead for my favorite group of all time, the Ramones. And he's like, and Johnny just had to make sure that my references checked out. Apparently, Johnny Ramone was actually like kind of a hard ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Have you up as well?
Have you seen the documentary End of the Century?
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's one of my favorites.
Fantastic. Yeah. But man, did I feel bad for like Joey. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It just seemed like he was a human punching bag half the time.
Yeah.
It really did.
They didn't paint their relationship as being very good, for sure.
Yeah, and it's crazy, but the Ramones are still, in my opinion, one of the best bands in existence. I mean, that ever existed. I mean, I don't care what anyone says. They didn't make the same record over and over again.
No, not even. They didn't even make the same record once.
No.
I mean, if you compare songs like Today Your Love, Tomorrow the World versus, Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue, those aren't even. They're not even comparable, except it's the same instrumentation.
No, I think
like it doesn't. There's not a sameness to what the Ramones did, even on each record. So
I think the reason why the first 4, but particularly probably the first 3, self-titled Leave Home and Rocket to Russia, why they get lumped in together so hard is because they do sound similar. Like,
right.
Their production, I mean, they were recorded, 2 of them were recorded the same year. Same studio, same producer.
Right.
I think even Road to Ruin was recorded. It wasn't until end of the century when they got Psycho, the one that just died.
Phil Spector.
Murderer. Yeah. Phil Spector. Isn't that what happened? Didn't he like get convicted for murder or something?
He was on trial for murder. I don't know exactly what happened.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he got convicted. But anyway, maybe I probably shouldn't say that without knowing for sure what happened. But from what
he's dead. What is he going to say?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, but for real though, Phil Spector did put out some amazing records. I mean, I love End of the Century.
Yeah.
And he also produced a lot of other good stuff. But anyway, it wasn't until Phil Spector when you really started to hear like the different stuff that Ramones could do, you know?
Right.
And that's where Rock and Roll High School came in. So, would Cheap Trick... So, okay, the song... My question then. Question of the day. If Cheap Trick would have been in Rock and Roll High School, would they have then performed the song Rock and Roll High School?
I don't know. I don't know if that was the name of the movie in its original, like, incarnation.
What was it, Power Pop High School?
Yeah, I don't know.
like, wouldn't that be great? Power Pop High School?
I think they probably just realized they had already made the movie Over the Edge with Cheap Trick's music.
Yeah.
Where a bunch of delinquents blow up the school. It's like, why are they going to make that again?
Yeah.
That movie's phenomenal, by the way.
Over the Edge, yeah.
Oh my god.
Yes.
The soundtrack is killer.
I haven't seen that movie forever, but I do remember watching it.
It's just as good.
Yeah.
It's just as good. When that kid says, or was it Matt Damon? He says, any kid that tells on another kid is a dead kid.
yeah.
That shit's awesome.
That is fucking awesome, yeah. That was...
Anyway.
I remember reading somewhere that was Kurt Cobain's favorite movie, too.
Oh, really? Oh, man. I saw it when I stayed home sick once when I was probably like 12 years old, and like it was on like A&E or something, and I was obsessed the rest of my life until I saw River's Edge, and like then I was obsessed with that very similar movie. So
what is your favorite movie of all time?
Probably Night of the Hunter.
Okay.
Yeah, with Robert Mitchum. It's really good. It's really, every time I see it, it's like a dream. I don't know how to describe it. But yeah, I love it. But I also like just about any movie about juvenile delinquents. You know?
Sure. Did you like Kids?
I haven't seen Kids since it came out. I've been meaning to see it again, but I did really like. There was a movie by the same person. What's his name? Larry Clark.
Yeah, there was
Harmony Korine.
Yeah, he had a couple.
Larry Clark. What's that?
He had a couple 3 movies after Kids.
Yeah. One of them I really liked was called What's Up Rockers.
Yeah, What's Up Rockers. That was so
super good. Yeah.
So I love that. I love that one part where that kid like is at the girl's house and the parents like come home and he jumps from like a 3-story house into a pool. It's like that kind of stuff is like there's no reason why anybody should ever survive something like that. And he just like comes up and he just like runs away like no problem. It's like if I did that I would break my knees, I would, you know what I mean? Like I would there's no way I would survive that, or at least I would be in like massive amounts of pain. It's kind of like the Well, like my favorite movie of all time is Stand By Me.
Nice.
And it's like that part where Vern and Gordy are walking across the train tracks, and that train comes. And so they run to the very end, and Gordy grabs Vern because Vern's too scared, like because he's sitting, he's like crawling on the train. You remember that scene?
Yep.
He grabs Vern because the train was going to literally hit them if they wouldn't have jumped, and they both just jump and they land on like this pile of rocks and dust. It's like, man, like. It's just, there's no way anybody could survive. I guess that's why they're called movies. That's why they're called movies.
Yeah, I guess so.
Don't try this at home.
Yeah. I mean, you can, but you'll probably get really hurt.
Yeah. I mean, you got
it's
the
your
choice.
life.
Hey, yeah, no kidding. It's your right, as they say.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So what we accomplished on this episode are 3 picks, and I almost cut you off at your third. I apologize for that again.
No problem.
We talked about Cheap Trick. We talked about the Ramones. For the first 10 minutes, we were talking about something, but I forgot what it was. Anyway, we talked about something. We talked about something the first 10 minutes. You guys will know what it is. Anyway, thank you for listening. And I just want to remind everybody that there is a YouTube video that exists with me and Erik talking about the Mad Villain record. This is on Spotify. This is on Content Made Right, and this is on Transistor. Links are in both of our Instagrams. And thank you for listening. Thanks for the support, everyone. Signing off now. And everybody have a good night. Oh, by the way, my name's Dan.
And I'm Erik.
All right, you guys have a good night.
Good night.